Trump Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt's first White House press briefing following the Trump-triggered government shutdown was predictably a total disaster, including at one point where Leavitt got triggered when a reporter confronted her to her face about Donald Trump corruptly involving his own son-in-law in high-stakes Middle East negotiations when his son-in-law has an obvious financial interest in the Middle East. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to play of this press briefing from Leavitt, starting with this here.
It is appropriate for Jared Kushner to be working on matters that involve Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia, three countries that combined have given him more than $2.5 billion for his investment firm.
I think it's, frankly, despicable that you're trying to suggest that it's inappropriate for Jared Kushner, who is widely respected around the world and has great trust in relationships with these critical partners in these countries, to strike a 20-point comprehensive detailed peace plan that no other administration would ever be able to achieve. And so Jared is donating his energy and his time to our government, to the President of the United States, to secure world peace. And that is a very noble thing. And
so it's actually, her getting triggered over this is just patently absurd. This is nepotism and corruption and financial corruption of the highest order. It's textbook Trump. As a reminder, Jared Kushner is Donald Trump's son-in-law. He married Ivanka Trump, Donald Trump's daughter. Yes, the daughter that Trump has said repeatedly he'd like to fuck, if not for the fact that she is his daughter. And I'm sure at times he's probably questioned it. Like, is that really that big of a deal? So Jared Kushner was basically the shadow secretary of state during Trump's first term. He was a special advisor to the president. He had a White House portfolio, White House security clearance, which, by the way, the intelligence community and law enforcement was like, you know what? Jared Kushner can't get a security clearance here. We can't give him national security clearance because he's actually a national security liability, given his financial ties to our foreign adversaries and the leverage they have on him. Trump, as president, overruled them and gave him that sort of access anyway. So it was nepotism and corruption infinitely greater than anything you could ever associate, for example, with Joe and Hunter Biden, right? That was Trump term one. And again, he was the de facto Secretary of State. After he leaves office, after Trump loses the election and Jared Kushner leaves the White House, this is the end of Trump's first term, he gets a $2 billion deal from the Saudi government, okay? And the people whom the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia actually hires to manage his sovereign wealth fund, the people, the financial experts, the Crown's financial experts, they were like, no, we can't make this deal with Jared Kushner because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He has no expertise in this respect. It's a bad investment. The Crown Prince had to corruptly overrule his own wealth managers to ink this corrupt deal with Jared Kushner. So that's, again, I use the word corrupt a lot, but it applies here. That's how corrupt, egregiously corrupt Jared Kushner is. And as a consequence, so is Trump and the Trump family. Well, now he's not back in the White House in an official capacity the way he was in Trump term one. But Trump basically drafted him to help orchestrate this, again, 20-point peace deal between Hamas and the Israeli government. Will it be accepted? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is Jared Kushner should have no fucking role in orchestrating foreign policy in the United States. It is corrupt nepotism of the highest order. And if the shoe were on the other foot, if this were Jen Psaki instead of Karoline Leavitt, if this were President Biden instead of Donald Trump, if it were Hunter Biden instead of Jared Kushner, and Jen Psaki says, well, listen, Hunter Biden's just trying to bring world peace. It's actually despicable of you to question that. It's like even conservative reporters would be like justifiably, they'd be like, time out. It doesn't matter how noble you think his goals might be, and maybe they are. It's still incredibly corrupt and dangerous for this unqualified person to be in this role, especially when they have a personal relationship with the sitting president of the United States, when it's his family member. So again, it's a perfectly valid question for her to get triggered by this. She's just classic Karoline Leavitt. I digress. Here's another clip.
Caroline, two questions. First of all, following up on that, the president said yesterday, I believe, within 3 or 4 days, he wanted to hear an answer from Hamas. Is he still sticking by that timeline?
Yes, as I just confirmed.
And then second question is a comment that's gotten a lot of global attention. Senator Dick Durbin, he was set to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Catholic Church. He's since declined accepting it because there has been some controversy. Pope Leo commented on this, and he said that someone who says I'm against abortion, but I'm in agreement with the inhumane treatment of immigrants in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life. You've been very open about your Catholic faith. How do you respond to that?
I would reject there is inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants in the United States under this administration. There was, however, significant inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants in the previous administration as they were being trafficked and raped and beaten, and in many cases killed over our United States southern border.
So the Biden administration did not engage in human trafficking, rape, or physical abuse. The Trump administration has repeatedly engaged in all sorts of torturous acts against undocumented immigrants. Alligator Alcatraz is one such example in Florida that had to be shut down by a federal judge. And so there's like Deport Depot, which is a sister penitentiary of Alligator Alcatraz that's being opened up by Republicans in Florida. You have all the civil rights abuses coming from the Trump administration that we've talked about in this channel and other channels have talked about extensively still, such that even conservative judges are like, hey, Trump administration, what the fuck are you all doing? Why are you all sending people to CCOT in El Salvador for them to be tortured? Why are you outsourcing your torture to Bukele of El Salvador? All sorts of high-profile instances of abuse and inhumane treatment at the hands of the Trump administration against undocumented immigrants. So that incendiary comment, rather that scathing rebuke of the Trump administration by the Pope, I think is absolutely merited. And Karoline Leavitt has nothing but her own personal outrage, and nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares. Here's another clip.
The government reopened.
GDP growth fell by about 0.5 percentage point during the last government shutdown during the president's first term. Are you expecting a similar type of impact on GDP growth related to this potential protracted government shutdown?
Well, look, I think it's dependent upon how long this shutdown continues. So it's dependent on how long it takes Democrats to muster up the coverage, 5 of them, to vote in the best interest of our country, our citizens, and our economy.
So again, pointing out that the longest government shutdown in modern American history happened under Donald Trump in term 1. Again, proving that this is pretty consistent. He's terrible at managing the government. No shutdowns, by the way, under President Biden, but Donald Trump triggered multiple shutdowns under his own administration. And it was true that, billions and billions of dollars in GDP suffered were lost, and GDP suffered as a consequence of Trump's, malfeasance and his inability to govern properly. So again, this idea, well, it just depends on how long Democrats keep the government shut down. Like, no. You need Democratic votes to keep the government open. And because they have leverage, they have every right to say, hey, listen, we need some concessions here. Now, I also grant, as somebody who doesn't like Trump, that Democrats are not entitled to literally anything they want because they're in the minority party. But if the minority has leverage, you do need to give them something, and something that they want, even if you don't want to give it, right? There has to be some give and take. I'm not saying it has to be 50-50, but it can't be 99-1 either. It has to be 80-20, 70-30. You have to give them something tangible. And if you don't do that, they have every right not to help you in this situation. This is on you. You need them. You need to give them something. And Trump is refusing to negotiate in good faith, even though Democrats have attempted to multiple times. And they even proposed a piece of legislation yesterday before the government shutdown, trying to keep the government funded. But Republicans voted against it. So it's a Republican shutdown. Here's another clip.
Eamon.
Thank you, Caroline. Yesterday, your administration took a 5% stake in Lithium Americas and a stake in the mine that they're working on, and you've taken stakes in other companies and revenue streams from other companies. Can you articulate the broader principle here? When does the administration see it as appropriate to demand equity stakes or revenue streams from American companies? And what other companies are you going to be demanding those from?
Well, look, this is a creative solution by the President of the United States to tackle our nation's crippling debt crisis. As I said earlier, we are $37 trillion, trillion with a T, in debt. And not only is the President effectively utilizing tariffs to bring in massive amounts of revenue, and there's billions of dollars coming in every month. I know you know that, even, because you cover it on CNBC quite well. So the President is focused on how can the United States government make more money?
So let's just stop right there for just a second. So $37 trillion, $8 trillion, literally $8 trillion of that was created under Donald Trump himself in his first term. He's contributed more to the national debt than any president in a single 4-year term, number one. Number two, the billions of dollars in tariff revenue are basically the tariff burden is being passed on to consumers. So consumers are ultimately paying for that because, as Goldman Sachs and others have reported, most of the price increases from tariffs are making their way to the American people, number two. And number three, if the tariffs were so goddamn successful at bringing in revenue, then why is he having to demand equity in American businesses, why not just ramp up the tariffs if they're really so damn good, right? Why wouldn't you do it that way? It's interesting how they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. But number 4, the fact of the matter is that the Trump administration demanding equity in American businesses, this is the sort of Marxism and communism and, command style economy that these people bitched about 10 months ago. Kamala Harris is going to institute communism and Marxism and socialism. She's going to, there's going to be price controls. They're going to take over companies and stuff. And now that's what the Trump administration is doing. They're shameless in their hypocrisy. And again, they have no, folks, it doesn't matter. They don't give a damn. They literally will say whatever they need to in order to take power. And if they have to contradict themselves Monday to Tuesday, it doesn't matter. They don't care. So they can simultaneously rail for months and fearmonger and lie about the Democratic Party being, the communist Marxist party. And then as soon as they get into power, demand equity stake, demand that the government have an actual seat at the table on the board of directors and, in the command structure of the business in question. If Biden had done that, if Harris had done that, if Barack Obama had done that, these people would have been trying to secede from the union, but they don't give a damn. It's literally say whatever, take it syllable by syllable, minute by minute, say whatever you have to say in whatever context, and then forget about it because consistency is irrelevant. Note that they're also bitching about Zoran Mamdani, the Democratic mayoral candidate in New York City. He's a communist. Well, wait, is he demanding equity stakes in New York and companies that do business in New York or founded in New York, headquartered in New York? No, but you all are. So what? You clearly have no issue with socialism or communism or Marxism, right? But again, the hypocrisy doesn't matter. So just make fun of them and ignore anything they say. Anything coming out of a Trump administration official's mouth about communism, you should give them the finger and say, what you say is irrelevant. Nobody cares what you say because you have no principles, no consistency. You complaining about communism is irrelevant. You all are communists for all intents and purposes, so we're just going to do whatever we want. That's the posture the Democratic Party should take loudly moving forward. Here's another clip.
Reagan.
Caroline, I have one for you on EJ Antoni and one on the shutdown.
Sure.
CNN reported that Collins and Murkowski declined to meet with EJ Antoni, raising concerns that his nomination was in trouble. I'm wondering what message Collins and Murkowski are sending to the White House by not meeting with one of the president's nominees.
Well, look, EJ Antoni remains a great ally of the president and our team. It became clear, unfortunately, that he was not going to have the votes, and so we will be announcing a replacement nominee very soon.
So, again, you can see she's pissed off. She's humiliated as well. She should be. Donald Trump's disastrous nominee to be the new head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics was such a failure, even by conservative standards, that they ultimately had to withdraw his nomination because he was that bad, because even Republicans were like, I can't support this guy. He lacks the intellect and the credentials and the experience to do this job well. Pretty embarrassing. One last clip.
2 things to ask you about.
Sure.
First thing, I want to ask about this video that the president posted the other day. It was an AI deepfake of himself talking about something called med beds. What was he trying to communicate to the public there, and why did he delete it?
I think the president saw the video and posted it and then took it down. And he has the right to do that. It's his social media. He's incredibly transparent, as you all know. You hear from him directly on social media. He likes to share memes. He likes to share videos. He likes to repost things that he sees other people post.
Pretty pathetic and stupid. This is the sitting president of the United States, and she's treating him like he's some sort of teenage shit poster. By the way, again, the standard would never work the other way for Democrats, but the deepfake in question was an incredibly dishonest and dangerous deepfake video that Trump posted and was so bad and got such backlash that even Trump eventually took it down. This is a big deal that the president of the United States, Donald Trump, traffics in such unparalleled and unprecedented dishonesty. But that's where we are, and that's what she has to try to defend. And listen, to her credit, I think she is the best Trump spokesperson, the best Trump White House press secretary that Trump has ever had. I think she's better at her job than Kayleigh McEnany was, than Sarah Huckabee Sanders was, than Sean Spicer was. I think she's the culmination of the ultimate MAGA press secretary. Unfortunately, that's like being the world's smartest flat earther. When the facts are so squarely against you, all of your natural talent, or the talent that you've honed, as a MAGA propagandist, will ultimately fail you. So ultimately, pretty embarrassing showing. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.